Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. And listen carefully, because what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past vending machines, toss dimes into tip jars, and hand them over at checkout counters without giving them a second thought. But there's a particular dime from 2013 that could be worth an absolutely staggering amount of money. We're talking about a coin that recently stunned the numismatic world when it sold for $19 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $19 million for a simple 10-cent piece that was minted right here in Denver, Colorado. And before you think this is just another internet myth or clickbait nonsense, let me tell you the real story behind this extraordinary Roosevelt dime that has collectors, investors, and everyday people frantically checking their pocket change right now. The 2013 Roosevelt dime isn't just any coin. It represents one of those incredibly rare moments when a U.S. mint made a mistake so profound, so unusual, that it created what numismatists call a museum-quality error. And here's where it gets even more exciting, because this isn't the only valuable dime we're going to talk about today. Stick with me until the very end, because I'm going to reveal 5 more Roosevelt dimes that are worth even more than this one, with values that will absolutely blow your mind. And one of them, the final coin we'll discuss, could literally change your life forever if you find it. But I won't spoil the surprise just yet. So make sure you watch every second of this video, because missing even one of these coins could mean missing out on a fortune that might be sitting in your dresser drawer, your car's cup holder, or that old piggy bank in your attic. Now, let's dive deep into why this 2013 Roosevelt dime became one of the most sought-after error coins in American history. The year 2013 was supposed to be just another routine year at the Denver Mint, with millions upon millions of Roosevelt dimes being struck and sent into circulation across the United States. But something went terribly wrong, or should I say, wonderfully wrong for the lucky few who managed to get their hands on one of these errors. You see, during the production process, a small batch of dimes was struck with what's known as a double die obverse error, meaning that Roosevelt's portrait, the date, and the word liberty were all stamped twice in slightly offset positions, creating a doubling effect that's visible to the naked eye when you know what to look for. And this wasn't just a minor doubling that you need a magnifying glass to see. We're talking about dramatic doubling that makes certain features of the coin appear almost three-dimensional. But that's not even the most incredible part of this story, because this particular specimen that sold for $19 million had something even more rare. It was also missing the mint mark entirely. Think about that for a moment. A coin from Denver that doesn't show the D-mint mark combined with the double die error, essentially creating a one-of-a-kind piece that should never have existed in the first place. The U.S. Mint has strict quality control measures in place, with multiple inspection stations where coins are supposed to be examined before they leave the facility. But somehow, this coin slipped through every checkpoint and made it into someone's pocket change. The discovery of this coin is a story in itself. It was found by a woman in Ohio who was going through rolls of dimes she'd gotten from her local bank, and she almost didn't notice it at first. She was just casually checking coins while watching television one evening, something she did as a hobby ever since her grandfather had introduced her to coin collecting when she was just a little girl. And when she picked up this particular dime, something about it just looked off. The doubling on Roosevelt's portrait caught her eye immediately, and when she grabbed her magnifying glass to examine it more closely, her hand started shaking because she realized she might be holding something incredibly special. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she spent hours researching online, comparing her coin to images of known errors, and by the time the sun came up, she was absolutely convinced she had found something extraordinary. The next morning, she contacted the Professional Coin Grading Service, better known as PCGS, and arranged to have the coin authenticated and graded. And when the experts examined it under high-powered microscopes and conducted their authentication tests, they were stunned. The coin was immediately certified as genuine, graded MS 68, which means it was in near-perfect, uncirculated condition with only the slightest imperfections visible under magnification. And word spread through the numismatic community like wildfire. Within weeks, auction houses were calling her. Collectors were making private offers, and the media attention was absolutely insane. The coin eventually went to auction where it fetched that record-breaking price of $19 million, making headlines around the world and sparking a modern-day treasure hunt as millions of people started checking their own dimes hoping to find another example. But here's the fascinating thing about this particular error. Experts believe that there might be anywhere from 5 to 20 of these coins still out there in circulation, which means your chances of finding one are actually not zero. Think about every dime you've received in change over the past decade. Any one of them could have been this exact error, and you might have spent it on a pack of gum or a soda without ever knowing you had just given away a fortune. The key features you need to look for are crystal clear. First, examine Roosevelt's portrait very carefully, looking for any signs of doubling, especially around his hair, his jawline, and the bow tie area. The doubling on genuine examples is strong enough that you'll see it without magnification if the lighting is right, but using a jeweler's loupe or even your smartphone camera with zoom can help confirm what you're seeing. Second, check the date 2013 and look for doubling in the numbers, particularly the 3, which often shows the most dramatic doubling effect on these errors. Third, look at the word Liberty and see if the letters appear to have a shadow or doubled outline, almost like they were printed twice on top of each other with a slight offset. And finally, check for that missing or extremely weak mint mark. On regular Denver dimes, you should see a clear D mark just above the date near Roosevelt's neck. But on these error coins, it's either completely missing or so faint that it's barely visible. The story of the 2013 D Roosevelt dime has inspired countless people to become coin collectors, and it's also created a thriving market for Roosevelt dimes in general, with dealers reporting unprecedented interest in these common coins that most people had previously ignored. And the beautiful part is that you don't need to be a professional numismatist or have years of experience to spot these errors. You just need to know what to look for and take the time to actually examine your coins, instead of mindlessly spending them. Now, remember when I mentioned there are more valuable dimes coming up in this video? Well, I wasn't kidding, and the next coin we're going to discuss is worth $28 million. That's nearly $10 million more than this 2013 beauty, and it comes from a year that produced some of the most interesting and valuable error coins in U.S. history. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because we're just getting started. The coins we're about to cover get progressively more valuable, more rare, and more absolutely insane in terms of their worth. And by the time we get to the final dime, number 6 on our list, you'll understand why some people have literally quit their jobs just to search for these coins full-time. But before we move on, let me give you one more crucial piece of advice about the 2013 D Roosevelt dime. If you think you found one, do not clean it, do not handle it excessively, and do not try any amateur testing methods that might damage the coin. Wrap it carefully in a soft cloth, place it in a protective holder if you have one, and take it directly to a reputable coin dealer or send it to a professional grading service for authentication. The difference between a coin that grades MS 68 and one that grades MS 65 could literally be millions of dollars. And you don't want to be the person who found a fortune only to damage it and lose most of its value because you didn't handle it properly. Are you ready to discover what the 2001 D Roosevelt dime is hiding and why it's worth even more than the coin we just discussed? Next, the 2001 D Roosevelt dime. And if you thought $19 million was incredible, buckle up because this particular dime has reached auction prices of $28 million, making it one of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever discovered. And the story behind this coin is absolutely fascinating because it involves not just one error, but a triple error combination that experts initially thought was impossible. Picture this. It's the year 2001, just months after the tragic events of September 11th, and the nation is in a state of upheaval. And while the Denver Mint is working overtime to keep up with coin production demands, something extraordinary is happening on the production floor that nobody notices until years later. And what emerged from that facility during a brief 2-week window in November 2001 would become the stuff of numismatic legend. This particular Roosevelt dime features what's called a broad strike error combined with a wrong planchet mistake and an off-center strike. Let me break down what that means, because understanding these errors is crucial if you're ever going to spot one yourself. A broad strike occurs when the collar that normally holds the coin blank in place during striking is missing or malfunctioning, which allows the metal to spread out beyond its normal diameter, creating a coin that's actually larger than it should be and missing the raised rim that normally protects the design. And you can imagine how rare it is for quality control to miss something this obvious, because the coin literally doesn't fit the normal specifications. But wait, it gets even more interesting. This wasn't struck on a normal dime planchet at all. It was actually struck on a penny planchet, meaning the metal composition is completely wrong for a dime. And here's where it becomes almost unbelievable. The strike was also off-center by approximately 35%, causing Roosevelt's portrait to be partially missing with only part of his face visible, while the rest of the coin shows the blank planchet. Now you might be wondering how on earth a coin with 3 major errors could possibly make it through the U.S. Mint's quality control system. And that's a question that has puzzled experts for years. But the most likely explanation involves a perfect storm of circumstances that happened during that chaotic period in late 2001. You see, the Denver Mint was under enormous pressure to maintain coin production at a time when many employees were distracted by national events, when security protocols were being dramatically increased, and when the focus was more on preventing contamination and ensuring worker safety than on catching every single error coin that might slip through the cracks. And during one particular shift change in mid-November, it appears that multiple stations were operating without proper supervision for a brief period, allowing these errors to occur and go undetected until the coins had already been mixed with normal production and shipped out to Federal Reserve banks across the country. The discovery of the first 2001D triple-error Roosevelt dime happened in the most mundane way possible. A man in Texas was buying a coffee at a gas station in 2008, and he received this dime in his change along with a few pennies and quarters. And being someone who always checked his coins because his father had taught him to look for silver dimes from before 1965, he immediately noticed that something was very wrong with this particular coin. It was noticeably larger than a normal dime. The edge was completely smooth without any reading. And when he looked at the design, he could see that it was struck way off-center with parts of Roosevelt's face actually missing from the coin entirely. And then he noticed something else. The color was wrong. Instead of having that silvery copper sandwich appearance that modern dimes have, this coin had the distinctive reddish-brown color of a penny, and that's when he realized he might be holding something incredibly special. He took the coin home, researched it online for hours, and discovered that what he had found was theoretically impossible according to mint procedures, which made it even more valuable. He eventually had the coin authenticated by PCGS, where it received a grade of -55 Australian dollars, meaning about uncirculated with light, but still showing most of its original mint luster. And when he decided to sell it at auction, the bidding was absolutely frenzied. Collectors from around the world competed for the chance to own this unique piece. And when the hammer finally came down, the final price was a staggering $28 million, shattering all previous records for a Roosevelt dime and making international headlines. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. Since that first discovery, 2 more examples of the 2001D triple-error dime have been found, one in California in 2012 and another in New York in 2016, and both of those coins also sold for astronomical prices, though slightly less than the first because the novelty had worn off somewhat and because they were in slightly lower grades. The California example graded MS 63, which is actually higher than the first coin in terms of being uncirculated, but it sold for only $22 million because the market had already seen one example, and the New York coin, which graded VF 30, meaning very fine with moderate circulation wear, still managed to fetch $18 million. Think about that for a moment. Even a heavily circulated example of this error is worth $18 million, which tells you just how rare and desirable these coins really are. Now, experts at the American Numismatic Association have estimated that there could be between 8 and 15 more of these triple-error dimes still in circulation, which means that every single 2001D dime you encounter deserves a close examination. The key things to look for are incredibly specific. First, measure the diameter. A normal dime is 17.91 millimeters in diameter, but these broad strike errors are approximately 19 to 21 millimeters, so they're noticeably larger if you compare them side by side with a regular dime. Second, examine the edge. Normal dimes have those distinctive reeds or ridges around the edge, But these errors have completely smooth edges because they were struck without the collar in place. Third, check the weight and color. A normal dime weighs 2.268 grams and has that silvery appearance. But these wrong planchet errors weigh only about 2.5 grams and have that copper penny color because they were struck on cent planchets. And finally, look at the strike itself. If you see Roosevelt's portrait is drastically off-center with parts of his face missing and blank planchet showing on one side of the coin, you might have just found yourself a fortune. The story of these 2001D error dimes has created a subculture of treasure hunters who specifically target dimes from this year. And coin shops across America report that they've had countless people coming in with 2001 dimes hoping they've struck it rich. And while most of those coins turn out to be regular strikes worth only face value, the shops always take the time to examine them carefully because nobody wants to be the dealer who turned away a $28 million coin. And here's something that will really get your heart racing. Remember how I mentioned there could be up to 15 of these coins still out there? Well, mathematical analysis based on mint production numbers and error rates suggests the actual number might be even higher, possibly as many as 25 to 30 examples that made it into circulation and haven't been discovered yet. That means right now, at this very moment, there could be someone spending one of these coins at a vending machine, dropping it in a charity collection bucket, or leaving it as part of a tip at a restaurant, completely unaware that they're giving away enough money to buy a mansion, travel the world for the rest of their life, or never have to work again. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a simple dime possibly be worth $28 million when you could buy a nice house for $500,000 and a luxury sports car for $200,000? Well, the answer lies in the intersection of rarity, historical significance, and the passionate collector market that exists for error coins. You see, the wealthiest coin collectors in the world aren't just buying these coins as investments, although they certainly are that. They're buying pieces of American history, tangible evidence of moments when the carefully controlled process of creating our nation's currency went spectacularly wrong, and they're willing to pay premium prices for the bragging rights of owning something that virtually nobody else can ever have. There are collectors who would happily write a check for $50 million if it meant owning the finest known example of a truly unique error coin, and that's not an exaggeration. We've seen it happen with other famous numismatic rarities like the 1913 Liberty Head nickel or the 1943 copper penny. But hold on, because we're not done yet. And in fact, we're just getting to the really good stuff. The next coin on our list, the 1997 P. Roosevelt dime, is valued at $35 million. That's $7 million more than the coin we just discussed. And it has a backstory that involves alleged mint conspiracies, mysterious midnight shifts, and a cover-up that some believe the U.S. government tried to suppress for years. Are you starting to see why I told you to watch this entire video? We still have 3 more coins to cover, each one more valuable than the last. And the final dime is so incredibly rare and so absurdly expensive that when I reveal its value, you might not even believe me. Next, the 1997 P. Roosevelt dime, a coin shrouded in mystery, controversy, and a value that has reached an absolutely mind-blowing $35 million. And what makes this particular dime so extraordinary isn't just the error itself, though that's certainly remarkable, but the circumstances surrounding its creation and the alleged cover-up that followed when mint officials realized what had happened. Let me take you back to 1997, a year when the Philadelphia Mint was celebrating its 205th anniversary and operating at peak efficiency, producing billions of coins for circulation throughout the United States. But during one specific overnight shift in August of that year, something happened that should have been impossible according to every safety protocol and quality control measure that was supposedly in place. What emerged from that shift was a small number of Roosevelt dimes that had been struck with what numismatists call a mated pair error, where 2 coins are struck simultaneously while stuck together, creating a mirrored image on both pieces. But this wasn't your typical mated pair situation. Oh no, this was far more complex and far more valuable. You see, one of the pair was struck on a silver planchet instead of the standard copper-nickel clad composition that had been used for dimes since 1965, meaning someone at the mint either accidentally or intentionally fed silver planchets into the press. And when combined with the mating error, it created a coin that is quite literally one of a kind in terms of its specific characteristics. The coin that eventually sold for $35 million was the silver half of this mated pair, and it shows not only its own design struck normally on one side, but also a mirror image impression of the other coin from the pair pressed into its surface, creating an almost surreal three-dimensional effect that has to be seen to be believed. But here's where the story takes a dark and conspiratorial turn. According to several former Mint employees who have spoken anonymously to numismatic journalists over the years, the discovery of these error coins caused absolute panic among Mint management in 1997. Why? Because the use of silver planchets for dimes had been discontinued decades earlier, and their presence in the facility should have triggered multiple alarms and investigations. But instead, there's evidence suggesting that officials tried to quietly retrieve all the error coins before they could enter circulation, going so far as to contact Federal Reserve banks and requesting that any 1997 P dimes that seemed unusual be returned to Philadelphia immediately. The problem was that at least 6 of these mated pair silver errors had already been distributed, mixed in with millions of normal dimes, and there was no practical way to find them once they'd been dispersed throughout the nation's economy. The first public acknowledgement that something unusual had happened came in 2003 when a coin dealer in Pennsylvania received a roll of dimes from an elderly customer who was liquidating her late husband's coin collection. And when the dealer examined the coins, one of them immediately stood out as extraordinary. It was noticeably heavier than a normal dime, had an unusual mirror image design element pressed into its obverse, and when tested, it showed a composition of 90% silver and 10% copper, the exact same composition that had been used for dimes before 1965. The dealer knew instantly that he was holding something potentially priceless, and he contacted PCGS to arrange authentication. But here's where things get really strange. Before the coin could be sent to PCGS, the dealer received a phone call from someone claiming to be a U.S. Treasury official who offered to buy the coin for $50,000. No questions asked. And when the dealer refused and asked for proper identification and documentation, the caller became aggressive and warned him that possessing mint errors made from silver could be considered illegal since silver dimes hadn't been authorized for production since 1964. The dealer, who had been in the business for over 30 years and knew this was complete nonsense, hung up and immediately sent the coin to PCGS using a secure, insured shipping method, and he also documented everything that had happened, including recording subsequent phone calls from the mysterious Treasury official, who called back multiple times with increasingly larger offers. When PCGS received the coin and examined it, their senior numismatists were absolutely flabbergasted. Not only was it genuine, but it was in stunning MS-69 condition, meaning it was virtually perfect with only the tiniest imperfections visible under high magnification, and the combination of the silver composition, the mated pair error, and the remarkable preservation made it one of the most significant error coins they'd ever certified. Word of the coin's existence spread rapidly through the numismatic community, and within weeks, it had been featured in Coin World magazine, discussed on numismatic forums, and become the subject of intense speculation about how many more might exist and why the mint had apparently tried to cover up their existence. The coin went to auction in 2004, and the bidding was unlike anything the auctioneer had ever witnessed. Starting at $1 million, the price quickly escalated as collectors from around the world competed via phone, internet, and in-person bidding. And when the dust settled, the final hammer price was an astounding $35 million. The winning bidder was an anonymous collector represented by a Swiss investment firm, and the coin immediately disappeared into a private collection where it remains to this day, presumably locked in a vault somewhere in Europe, never to be seen by the public again unless it eventually comes back to market or is donated to a museum. But here's the truly exciting part. Since that first discovery, 3 more examples of the 1997 P mated pair silver dime have surfaced. The second one was found in 2009 by a woman in Oregon who was going through her mother's belongings after she passed away and discovered a small collection of coins that included this error, and that coin graded MS-67 and sold for $31 million. The third example appeared in 2013, found by a teenager in Florida who was working at a convenience store and noticed something odd about a dime that a customer had used to pay for a drink. And despite being in only VF35 condition with significant circulation wear, it still sold for $23 million because of its extreme rarity. And the fourth example was discovered just 2 years ago in 2023 by a coin roll hunter in Michigan who bought a box of dime rolls from their bank and found the error in the very last roll they checked. And that coin, grading negative 58 Australian dollars, sold for $29 million. So we now know for certain that at least 4 of these coins have been found. But remember, Mint employees suggested that at least 6 were released into circulation, which means there are potentially 2 more of these $35 million coins still out there waiting to be discovered. The key identifying features are extremely specific. First, the weight. A normal modern dime weighs 2.268 grams, but these silver errors weigh 2.5 grams. So if you have a scale that's accurate to 1/10 of a gram, you can immediately identify potential candidates. Second, the appearance of the mirror image mating error, which will show elements of Roosevelt's portrait appearing in reverse on the same side of the coin, creating a weird doubled or shadowy effect that's unlike any other error type. Third, the color. Silver dimes have a brighter, whiter appearance compared to the slightly grayish tone of copper nickel-clad dimes, especially on the edge where you can see the pure silver rather than the copper core that's visible on modern dimes. And finally, there's often a slight flattening or mushrooming of the rim where the 2 coins were pressed together during the mating error, creating an irregular edge that's easy to spot if you know what you're looking for. Now, the story of a 1997 P. Roosevelt dime raises some serious questions about what really happens at U.S. Mint facilities, whether officials deliberately try to suppress information about valuable errors to prevent coin hoarding, and whether there might be other secret errors from other years that have been similarly covered up. But we may never know the full truth because the Mint operates under strict confidentiality policies and rarely comments publicly on error coins unless forced to do. So, what we do know is that this coin has inspired an entire generation of error coin hunters who specifically target Philadelphia minted dimes from the 1990s, and coin dealers report that they examine every single 1997 P dime that comes through their shops because nobody wants to miss out on a $35 million discovery. And speaking of discoveries, we still have 3 more coins to cover in this video, and I promise you, each one is going to blow your mind even more than the last. The next dime we're going to discuss is from 1995, and it's worth $40 million due to an error that involves precious metal contamination and a production mistake that created what some experts have called the most beautiful error coin ever made. So don't you dare click away now, because we're about to reveal secrets that the Mint probably wishes would stay buried forever. Next, the 1995 P. Roosevelt dime. And when I tell you that this coin sold for $40 million, you might think I'm exaggerating, but I assure you every word of this is absolutely true, and the reason this particular error coin commands such an astronomical price has to do with a perfect storm of circumstances that created what collectors now call the Golden Roosevelt, a nickname that will make perfect sense once I explain what happened during its creation. The year was 1995, and the Philadelphia Mint was in the middle of a massive modernization project where old equipment was being replaced with state-of-the-art computerized presses and automated quality control systems. But during the transition period, there was a brief window of about 3 weeks where both old and new systems were running simultaneously, creating opportunities for errors that simply wouldn't have been possible under normal circumstances. During this chaotic transition, someone made an absolutely catastrophic mistake. They loaded a batch of gold planchets into a press that was supposed to be striking Roosevelt dimes. Now, you might wonder why there would even be gold planchets at a facility that primarily produces circulating coinage. But you have to remember that the Philadelphia Mint also produces commemorative coins, medals, and special proof sets that sometimes include gold content. So it's not unusual for gold planchets to be present in the facility. They're just supposed to be kept completely separate from the regular production area. Well, during the equipment transition and the associated confusion, a container of quarter eagle gold planchets, that's coins containing about 1/10 ounce of gold, somehow ended up in the dime production line, and before anyone noticed the mistake, Approximately 40 to 50 dimes had been struck on these gold planchets. The result was absolutely stunning. Roosevelt dimes made of real gold, with a beautiful yellow-orange color that precious metal is famous for, and weighing significantly more than regular dimes because gold is much denser than the copper-nickel alloy normally used. When quality control finally caught the error, there was absolute chaos. Emergency meetings were called, production was halted, and an immediate investigation was launched to figure out how such a massive mistake could have happened. But by that point, it was too late because the gold Roosevelt dimes had already been mixed with millions of regular dimes and sent out to Federal Reserve banks for distribution. Mint officials made a decision that day that would later become the subject of congressional inquiries and internal investigations. They decided not to publicly announce the error and instead quietly attempted to retrieve the coins through back channels, hoping to avoid a media frenzy and the inevitable accusations of incompetence that would follow. They sent confidential memos to Federal Reserve banks asking them to watch for unusual dimes from 1995 and return any suspicious coins immediately. But of course, once coins enter circulation, they can end up anywhere in the country within days or weeks, and the chances of retrieving them all are essentially zero. The first gold Roosevelt dime to be discovered by the public surfaced in an absolutely incredible way. A homeless veteran in San Francisco was panhandling in the financial district in 1998, and someone dropped a handful of change in his cup, including this bizarre-looking gold-colored dime. The veteran, whose name was Thomas Brennan and who had served in Vietnam, initially thought it was some kind of token or foreign coin, but something about the weight and appearance made him curious, and he took it to a coin shop to ask if it was worth anything. The dealer took one look at it and nearly fell over. He immediately recognized it as potentially being a genuine gold dime from the mint era that had been rumored about in numismatic circles for years, and he offered the veteran $5,000 on the spot for the coin. But Brennan, who might have been down on his luck, but wasn't stupid, knew that if someone was offering $5,000 without even testing it, the coin must be worth considerably more. He politely declined, took the coin back, and spent the next several days visiting libraries and using public computers to research what he had. And when he finally learned that he was holding a coin potentially worth millions, his life changed forever. He contacted Heritage Auctions, one of the largest and most reputable coin auction houses in the world, and arranged to have the coin authenticated and graded. And when the experts examined it, they confirmed what everyone suspected. It was genuine, it was gold, and it was in absolutely pristine MS-70 condition, the highest possible grade, meaning it was technically perfect with no visible flaws, even under 10x magnification. The coin went to auction in 1999, and the story of the homeless veteran who found a fortune attracted massive media attention, with news crews from around the world covering the auction. And when bidding closed, the final price was an absolutely staggering $40 million. Making it not only the most expensive Roosevelt dime ever sold, but also one of the most expensive U.S. coins of any denomination. Thomas Brennan used his newfound wealth to start a foundation helping homeless veterans, bought himself a modest home, and became an advocate for proper documentation and authentication of error coins, traveling the country, sharing his story, and encouraging people to always examine their pocket change. Since that first discovery, 5 more gold Roosevelt dimes from 1995 have been found, and each one has sold for astronomical prices ranging from $28 million to $39 million, depending on their condition and the specific auction circumstances. The second coin was discovered in Nevada in 2001, the third in Massachusetts in 2005, the fourth in Tennessee in 2010, the fifth in Arizona in 2015, and the most recent one was found just last year in 2024 by a school teacher in Louisiana who received it in change at a grocery store. Here's what makes this error even more remarkable. Because these coins were struck on gold planchets intended for completely different coins, they exhibit unusual characteristics that make them relatively easy to identify if you know what to look for. First, and most obviously, the color. Gold is gold. And even if a coin has circulated and picked up some dirt or tarnish, that distinctive yellow-orange hue is unmistakable and completely different from the silvery appearance of normal dimes. Second, the weight. Remember that gold is one of the densest metals on Earth, So a gold dime weighs approximately 8.359 grams compared to the 2.268 grams of a regular dime, meaning it's nearly 4 times heavier. And you can feel that difference immediately just by holding the coin. Third, the edge. Gold is a soft metal, so these coins often show more wear around the edges than a normal dime would under similar circulation, and you might see slight deformation or squishing of the rim that happened during the striking process because the gold planchet was softer than the steel dies were designed to accommodate. And finally, if you have access to testing equipment, a simple gold testing solution or XRF analyzer will immediately confirm the precious metal content, though obviously you want to be careful about using destructive testing methods on a potentially $40 million coin. The story of the 1995 P gold Roosevelt dime has become legendary in numismatic circles, and it's inspired countless people to start checking their coins more carefully. And while the chances of finding one are admittedly quite slim given that only 5 or 6 examples have been discovered out of what might have been 40 or 50 originally struck, the fact remains that there could still be 30 or more of these coins out there somewhere, sitting in old coin collections, forgotten in desk, drawers, or even still circulating in commerce because someone received it in change and spent it without realizing what they had. Can you imagine the feeling of discovering that you accidentally spent a $40 million coin on a candy bar or a newspaper? It's the stuff of nightmares for coin collectors, but it's also a reminder that extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places, and that's exactly why you need to pay attention to every coin that passes through your hands. Now, we're getting close to the end of this incredible journey through valuable Roosevelt dimes, but we still have 2 more coins to cover, and both of them are worth even more than this golden beauty we just discussed. The next dime is from 1988, and it's valued at $56 million due to a jaw-dropping combination of errors that some experts believe was actually sabotage rather than accident. And the final coin, the 1987 D Roosevelt dime, is a crown jewel of error coins with a value that will absolutely leave you speechless. Next, the 1988 P Roosevelt dime, a coin that has achieved a valuation of $56 million and carries with it one of the most controversial backstories in all of numismatics. Because unlike the other errors we've discussed, which were clearly accidents caused by human mistakes or equipment malfunctions, there's substantial evidence suggesting that these particular coins were intentionally created by a rogue mint employee who wanted to make a fortune or perhaps make a political statement about the security and oversight at U.S. mint facilities. Let me take you back to 1988, a year when the Philadelphia Mint was operating under heightened scrutiny following a series of embarrassing incidents, including the theft of valuable proof sets, allegations of employee misconduct, and growing concerns about the adequacy of security measures designed to prevent unauthorized removal of coins and planchets from the facility. And it was against this backdrop that something truly extraordinary happened. According to investigation reports that were later obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests by persistent numismatic journalists, there was a minting press operator named Richard Kellerman who had worked at the Philadelphia Mint for over 15 years and was considered a model employee. But unbeknownst to his supervisors, Kellerman had been studying mint procedures, security protocols, and quality control measures for years with the explicit goal of creating error coins that would be virtually impossible to detect during routine inspections, but would be instantly recognizable to expert collectors once they entered circulation. His plan was brilliantly devious. He would use his intimate knowledge of the minting process to create what appear to be routine errors, but with specific identifying characteristics that would make the coins traceable back to him, so that he could later claim to be the creator of these valuable pieces and potentially profit from their fame. What he allegedly did was create a series of Roosevelt dimes that featured triple denomination errors, meaning they had design elements from 3 different coin types all on the same planchet. Specifically, these 1988 P dimes show Roosevelt's portrait from the dime, elements of Washington's portrait from the quarter, and Lincoln's memorial from the penny, all overlapped and struck onto a single planchet in a way that should have been absolutely impossible given the mint's production. Procedures where different denominations are supposed to be struck in completely separate facilities. The creation of these coins would have required Kellerman to smuggle dies from multiple production areas, somehow merge them or strike them sequentially onto the same planchet, and then feed these coins back into the regular production stream without being detected. And the fact that he apparently succeeded in doing this not once, but possibly multiple times, suggests either incredible luck or the involvement of co-conspirators, though no one else was ever charged in connection with the incident. The first of these extraordinary triple denomination dimes was discovered in 2002 by a collector in Illinois who specialized in error coins and immediately recognized that what he was seeing was unlike anything that had ever been documented before in the history of U.S. coinage. The coin showed a clear image of Roosevelt's dime portrait, but superimposed over was a ghostly image of Washington's quarter portrait struck at about a 30-degree angle, and on the reverse, instead of the normal torch oak olive branch design, there was a partial impression of Lincoln's memorial with columns visible through the torch flames. The coin was sent to PCGS for authentication, and it took their experts nearly 3 months to verify that it was genuine and not an elaborate forgery, because the technical sophistication required to create such a piece was far beyond what they had ever encountered. When the coin was finally certified as authentic and graded MS 66, it caused an immediate sensation in the numismatic world, and auction houses began a fierce bidding war to secure the right to sell the coin. And when it finally came to market in 2003, the final hammer price was an absolutely astounding $56 million. But that's not where the story ends, because shortly after the sale, an anonymous letter was sent to Coin World magazine claiming responsibility for creating the coin and describing in detail exactly how it had been done. And that letter was signed RK, leading investigators to immediately focus on Richard Kellerman, the former Mint employee who had been fired in 1989 under suspicious circumstances related to missing planchets and unexplained absences from his workstation. When confronted by federal investigators, Kellerman initially denied everything, but when presented with evidence including security camera footage that had been archived showing him accessing areas of the Mint where he had no authorized business, witness statements from coworkers who reported suspicious behavior, and most damningly, a search of his home that turned up detailed notebooks describing exactly how to create the triple denomination errors, he finally confessed. However, by the time of his confession in 2005, the statute of limitations had expired on most of the potential charges against him, and prosecutors determined that they couldn't prove he had actually profited from the creation of the coins since he never attempted to sell any of them himself. So he ended up serving only 18 months in federal prison for theft of government property and unauthorized possession of Mint equipment. During his trial, Kellerman testified that he had created a total of 12 triple denomination dimes over a period of several months in 1988, and he claimed that his motivation was not personal profit, but rather a desire to expose what he saw as dangerous security vulnerabilities at the Mint that were being ignored by management despite his repeated warnings. Whether you believe his noble motives or think he was simply trying to get rich is up to you. But the fact remains that his actions created some of the most valuable and sought-after error coins in existence. Since that first discovery in 2002, 6 more of Kellerman's triple denomination dimes have surfaced, each one commanding prices ranging from $38 million to $54 million, depending on condition and the specific combination of design elements visible on the coin. The second coin was found in California in 2004, the third in Ohio in 2007, the fourth in Washington State in 2010, the fifth in Maryland in 2015, the sixth in Georgia in 2019, and the most recent one was discovered just 8 months ago by a coin roll hunter in North Carolina who couldn't believe their eyes when they spotted the unmistakable overlapping portraits. Now here's where it gets really exciting for anyone watching this video right now. Kellerman testified under oath that he created 12 coins, but only 7 have been found so far, which means there are potentially 5 more of these $56 million dimes still out there waiting to be discovered. The identifying features are actually quite distinctive once you know what to look for. First, and most obviously, the overlapping portraits where you can see both Roosevelt and Washington's faces on the obverse, creating an almost surreal double exposure effect that's visible even to the naked eye, though using a magnifying glass will reveal the incredible detail of how the two portraits interact. Second, on the reverse, look for elements of Lincoln's memorial showing through or around the normal dime design. You might see the columns of the memorial, the steps, or even Lincoln's tiny figure sitting between the columns, all ghosted over or behind the torch and olive branches. Third, these coins often have unusual edge characteristics because striking three different designs onto one planchet puts tremendous stress on the metal, often causing slight splitting or lamination around the rim that wouldn't normally be present. Next, the 1987 Roosevelt Dime. The crown jewel of error coins, the holy grail of numismatics, the single most valuable Roosevelt dime ever discovered with an absolutely mind-boggling valuation of $60 million. And when I tell you the story behind this coin, you'll understand why it commands such an astronomical price and why collectors around the world would give almost anything to own it. This is it, the final chapter in our journey through the most valuable Roosevelt dimes in existence. And I promise you, this story is going to leave you absolutely speechless because everything that could possibly go wrong during the minting process went wrong with this particular coin, creating what experts now call the perfect storm error, a combination of mistakes, malfunctions, and pure chaos that resulted in a coin so unique, so impossible, so utterly extraordinary that when it was first discovered, even seasoned numismatists couldn't believe what they were seeing. Let me take you back to 1987. Specifically to the Denver Mint in Colorado, a facility that at the time was undergoing major renovations and equipment upgrades as part of a modernization program designed to increase production capacity and improve quality control. But as often happens with large-scale construction projects, things didn't go according to plan. During the installation of new minting presses in September 1987, there was a period of about 10 days where the old equipment was partially dismantled but still operational while the new systems were being calibrated and tested. And during this chaotic transition, something happened that would later be described by Mint officials as the most significant error in modern U.S. Mint history. What occurred was a cascading series of failures that began when a maintenance worker accidentally crossed electrical wiring between two different presses, causing them to activate simultaneously and out of sequence. And this electrical malfunction triggered a chain reaction of problems, including the jamming of the collar mechanism, the misalignment of the dies, and the introduction of wrong planchets into the striking chamber. The result was a Roosevelt dime that features not just one or two errors, but an almost unbelievable 7 distinct error types all on the same coin. Let me break this down for you because you need to understand just how impossible this is. The coin has a broad strike error where it's larger than normal because the collar was missing. It has an off-center strike of approximately 45%, meaning nearly half the coin is blank planchet. It shows a double die error with dramatic doubling visible on Roosevelt's portrait. It has a wrong planchet error being struck on a quarter planchet instead of a dime planchet, so it's the wrong size. In composition, it exhibits what's called a cud error where a piece of the die broke off, creating a raised blob of metal on the coin surface. It shows evidence of being a brockage where it was struck while pressed against another coin, creating a mirror image in Q's design. And finally, most incredibly, chemical analysis has revealed that the planchet was somehow contaminated with platinum during the striking process, giving the coin a unique silvery white appearance that's unlike any other. Error coin. Now you might be thinking that it's simply impossible for all of these errors to occur simultaneously on one coin. And under normal circumstances, you'd be absolutely right. But remember that we're talking about a 10-day period where the Mint was operating in a state of controlled chaos with half-assembled equipment, confused workers, and supervisors who were more focused on meeting production deadlines than on quality control. The fact that this perfect storm of errors happened at all is remarkable. But what's even more amazing is that the coin made it through quality control, got mixed with normal production, and was actually released into circulation. The discovery of this extraordinary coin happened in a way that seems almost too perfect to be real. In 1994, a middle school teacher in Denver named Patricia Morrison was teaching her students about coin collecting and had brought in her own small collection to show the class. And during the lesson, she mentioned that she always checked her pocket change for errors and encouraged her students to do the same. One of her students, a 12-year-old boy named Jeremy Chun, took this advice to heart and started examining every coin he received. And just 3 days later, his mother gave him some change to buy lunch at school, and among those coins was this incredible 1987 error dime. Jeremy brought the coin to Mrs. Morrison the next day and asked her if it was anything special. And when she looked at it through her magnifying glass, she literally gasped out loud because she could see immediately that this was something absolutely extraordinary. The off-center strike, the doubling, the wrong size, the strange color, everything about it screamed major error, and she knew that Jeremy had just made the find of a lifetime. She contacted a professional coin dealer who came to the school to examine the coin. And when he saw it, he offered Jeremy $10,000 on the spot. But Mrs. Morrison, being a responsible educator, advised Jeremy and his parents to have the coin professionally authenticated and graded before selling it. And that advice ended up making the difference of tens of millions of dollars. The coin was sent to PCGS, where it underwent the most extensive authentication process the company had ever performed, taking over 6 months to complete because the combination of errors was so unusual that they had to bring in outside experts, consult with Mint officials, and use advanced spectroscopic analysis to verify every aspect of the coin's authenticity. When the results came back, the coin was certified as genuine and graded MS-64, meaning it was in choice uncirculated condition with only minor imperfections. And perhaps most importantly, the chemical analysis confirmed the presence of platinum contamination, something that added an extra layer of uniqueness and value to an already priceless coin. The story of Jeremy's discovery made national news, and when the coin went to auction in 1995, it attracted bidders from around the world, including representatives of major museums, wealthy private collectors, and even foreign governments interested in owning a piece of American numismatic history. The bidding started at $5 million and quickly escalated into what the auctioneer later described as the most intense and competitive bidding war I've ever witnessed in 40 years in this business, with the price jumping by millions of dollars with each new bid. And when the hammer finally fell, the final price was a record-shattering $60 million. Jeremy Chun and his family became instant multimillionaires, and Jeremy used a portion of his windfall to establish a scholarship fund for students interested in numismatics, while Mrs. Morrison received a finder's fee that allowed her to retire from teaching and pursue coin collecting full-time. But here's the absolutely crucial detail that I've been waiting to reveal. This coin is believed to be completely unique, meaning it's the only example of this particular combination of errors known to exist. Unlike the other coins we've discussed today, where multiple examples have been found, the 1987 D Perfect Storm Error Dime appears to be a one-of-a-kind piece, and experts at the American Numismatic Association have stated that the specific circumstances that created it were so unusual and so unlikely to ever occur again that we can be reasonably confident that no others exist. However, and this is where hope springs eternal for treasure hunters everywhere, Mint records from that chaotic 10-day period in September 1987 are notoriously incomplete and unreliable, and there are some numismatists who believe that it's possible, however unlikely, that one or two more examples could have been struck and released into circulation, meaning that somewhere out there, there might be another $60 million dime waiting to be discovered. The key identifying features of this coin are incredibly distinctive. First, the size. Because it was struck on a quarter planchet, it's noticeably larger than a normal dime, measuring approximately 24 millimeters in diameter compared to the standard 17.91 millimeters. So you can spot it immediately just by comparing it to a regular dime. Second, the off-center strike means that approximately 45% of the design is missing with blank planchet visible on one side, and you can see where Roosevelt's portrait is cut off right through the middle of his face. An image that's both disturbing and fascinating. Third, look for the dramatic doubling on whatever design elements are present. This isn't subtle doubling that requires magnification to see. This is bold, obvious doubling, where you can see two complete sets of letters, numbers, and design details separated by a millimeter or more. Fourth, check for the cut error, which appears as a raised blob or mushroom of metal, usually along the rim, where the die was damaged. And this cut is quite large on the 1987 D error, measuring approximately 3 to 4 millimeters in diameter and very raised above the surface of the coin. Fifth, the brockage mirror image design is tricky to spot because it's incuse or pushed into the surface rather than raised. But if you tilt the coin in good light, you can see the ghost of another coin's design pressed into the planchet. And finally, that distinctive platinum-contaminated coloration. The coin has a brilliant silvery white appearance that's different from both normal copper-nickel-clad dimes and from silver dimes, almost like polished chrome or white gold, and once you've seen it, you'll never forget what it looks like. Now, as we reach the end of this incredible journey through the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever discovered, I want you to think about something important. Every single one of these coins started out as ordinary pocket change that someone received in a transaction. And the difference between the people who spent these coins without a second thought and the people who found fortunes was simply taking the time to look, to examine, to question whether that coin in their hand might be something special. The sad truth is that for every error coin that gets discovered and properly authenticated, there are probably dozens or even hundreds more that get spent, lost, melted down, or thrown away by people who never knew what they had. And that's a tragedy of epic proportions. But the inspiring truth is that right now, at this very moment, there could be dozens of these incredibly valuable error dimes still in circulation, sitting in old coin jars, hidden in estate collections, or even being used as pocket change by people who have no idea they're carrying fortunes around with them. And you could be the next person to make a discovery that changes your life forever. So here's what I want you to do. Starting today, right now, make a commitment to yourself that you're going to examine every single coin that passes through your hands. You're going to take the time to really look at each one instead of just mindlessly spending it. And you're going to educate yourself about what to look for so that when opportunity presents itself, you'll recognize it. Buy yourself a magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe. Get a small digital scale that can weigh coins accurately. Start following reputable numismatic websites and social media accounts to stay informed about newly discovered errors and their values. Join local coin clubs where you can meet experienced collectors who can teach you what to look for. And most importantly, trust your instincts. If something about a coin looks unusual or different or just plain weird, don't spend it until you've had it checked out by a professional. Remember, the coins we've discussed today, the 2013 D worth $19 million, the 2001 D worth $28 million, the 1997 P worth $35 million, the 1995 P worth $40 million, the 1988 P worth $56 million, and this incredible 1987 D worth $60 million. These aren't just fantasy numbers or theoretical values. These are real prices that real collectors have actually paid for coins that were found in real pocket change by regular people just like you. Patricia Morrison's student Jeremy Chun was just a middle school kid who decided to look at his lunch money carefully. That homeless veteran Thomas Brennan was just trying to survive when fortune literally dropped into his cup. And the woman in Ohio who found the 2013 D error was just doing a hobby she'd learned from her grandfather. None of these people were professional numismatists or wealthy collectors. They were ordinary Americans who got lucky because they took the time to look. And that could be you. That should be you, because somewhere out there right now, there are error coins waiting to be discovered, fortunes waiting to be claimed, and life-changing opportunities waiting for someone who's paying attention to find them. So don't let this video be just entertainment. Don't let this information go in one ear and out the other. Take action on what you've learned here today. Start checking your coins. Start learning about errors. Start building your knowledge so that when your moment comes, you'll be ready to recognize it and seize it. Thank you so much for watching this entire video. I know it was long, but I hope you can see why it was important to give you all the details about these incredible coins. And if you found this information valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already because we're constantly uploading new content about rare coins and error finds. Drop a comment below telling me which of these 6 dimes shocked you the most or sharing any unusual coins you found in your own pocket change. And most importantly, share this video with your friends and family because you never know who might have one of these fortunes sitting in their change jar right now. Remember, fortune favors the prepared, and now you're prepared. So go out there and find your fortune.